Hello everyone, this is John Adams and I'm going to be talking about Photoshop and how to adjust your images, size, and resolution today. This is specifically for our assignment for our Art 161 or CMT 145 class. That is the Image Correction and Scanning Project, assignment number 1. So one of the first things that you need to know, of course you need to open your image first, but that we need to resize your image, and your image size is going to be very important. Now keep in mind this is a digital image. If you're scanning a printed image, you would set the image size and the resolution when you do the scanning, and that's what I would prefer. But if you have a digital created image, that is what this specific tutorial is about. So when you're creating an image, you need to keep in mind that if you're going to create the image for print, if you're going to create it for print, you have to keep in mind if you want to resample. So if you go up to the menu up in the very top, go under Image, Image Size, and your dialog box will come open. And what I want you to do is to take a look at this palette for your image size. And first of all, look at the image size, total image size. So this is 5.49 megabyte, and this is the 600 pixels or 1600 pixels by 1200 pixels. That's the original size. And if we normally you would see it in pixels when it first comes up, but you can change this setting over here in pixels just by going in this menu and changing that to inches. So now we see it in inches. So the requirements for this image is for the image to be the first image for this project is an 8 by 10 or 11 by 14. So we have two different sizes. We'll start with the 8 by 10 size first. So if we want to change this to 8 by 10, like I said, you have to decide whether you want to resample or not. Resampling means that you're going to resample the size, and you can upscale it or downscale it. So upscaling it would be to increase the resolution, say by another 100%, and that would put it at 200. And notice what happens is that your image size is increased, the resolution is increased, the width and height has not been increased, but you'll see that you're going from a 5.49 megabyte image to a 22 megabyte image, which is what is that? It's 4 times the size, which is huge. Now you have a preview of it here, and you can see when you click down and hold your mouse key down over the preview image, this is before and this is after. So if you look at it this way, that's after and this is before, but you can see how the image changes, and you can see up in here, this is what will happen. It will start blurring when you get to that size. So it's not that bad when you reduce the visual size, but at 100%, you're losing a lot of detail in here. You can see all this is getting kind of noisy. You can see all this in here right now. If I hold down the mouse key, you'll see what that looks like with the size change on it. So what happens is when you resample, you make your image blurry, which we don't want to do. There's very specific instances where you can upscale, but just slightly, never to 200% or another 100%. That would really make your image very, very blurry, and you don't want to ruin your image. One of the problems with working on assignments like this is that you want as highest resolution as possible. So you want to start with the high resolution if possible. So on this, I'm going to go back down. I'm going to delete that and go back down to 100, and then you'll see the image at that size. And you can move your preview around in here just by clicking in it and moving it. So the idea is resample. Resample will let you resample the width, height, and so on. It will constrain the size in here, and that's what this little box is for. It'll constrain it, so if I go up to 18, it's going to increase the height on here. But you're also resampling, you're changing the size from that 5.49 to 6.95. So it's slightly, it's not a lot. And you probably won't see a big difference, but if you click, you can see a difference in the image. Click and hold this down to see your preview of what that's going to look like. Now, that's not always a good idea, like I said, to even resample this much. There are certain circumstances on the next assignment that we'll be working on where it's a background image and you can get away with making the background image a little bit larger, but only up about an 1/8%, so not very much at all. Like that would be about 4%. So you don't want to increase it too much. So what we want to do is we want to go back and we want to clear this. So to clear this, what we want to do is go up in here where it says fit to and go back to the original size, and then it'll go back to the original size that we started with. Then we want to uncheck the resample box, and then on this assignment we want to use 200 pixels per inch. So you can also change this pixels per inch, setting, but we never use pixels by centimeters, so pixels by inch is what we want to use. And then set this to 200. That's the setting that we have for both images, number 1 and number 2, for this assignment. So as you can see, when you do this, the problem is it's not going to fit this 8 by 10. Of course, this is, the width is wider than the height. So we could go either way. If it was a portrait image, we could set it for a portrait, and that would be just the opposite. So it would be 8 by 10, 8 in width, 10 by height. Or if it's a horizontal image like this, a landscape, you could make the width 10 by 8. So if we change this in here, what's going to happen? So if we go in here and change this to 8, then this goes up to 10, which is good, but we don't want this extra amount here, the 0.667. So that's a problem. If we change this to 10, this is going to make this lower than 8 inches. So obviously you can't manipulate your image that way because it has to do with cropping and the actual ratio of your actual image. So we don't want to do that. So we pick the size, such as here on the height, to be 8 inches, and it is 10, but we'll have excess up here. So that means we're going to have to crop some of the width of this photo, which we do have extra space either on either side, probably this side more, the right side more than the other. So we just want to get this as close as we can. We want to make sure the resolution is still set at 200. So we're not going to be able to get this image to set at that size, so we may need to do it another way. So in this specific case, we're going to have to resize the width here without having it locked together. So we will have to resample to keep this at a 200 resolution and get this at 10 or 8 by 10 in the width. So you hit resample. Now it'll give you the capabilities to change this to the 8 by 10 setting. So now I'm going to hit this, and notice it constrains this. Otherwise it would scrunch your image on the width and it wouldn't look right. So it keeps everything in proportion to the ratio of the image. So for right now, this is as good as we can get, but what we're going to have to do is get rid of this 0.667, and that means we have to go to crop in Photoshop. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK, and there's our image. Of course it looks a little bit bigger because we scaled it up slightly, and you can kind of see a little bit better this way. Okay, so that's as much as we can do with the image resizing, but the next thing we want to do is go over into the toolbox and go to crop, the crop tool. And the crop tool, when it comes up, up at the very top, it's going to give you this information, the ratio. So up in here, if you click on this, you can get different ratios. And here's it says 4:5 ratio or 8:10, which is okay. And then it has other sizes here. So you can create your own size if you want to, but in here, this would be the ratio. Now this would be for the width would be the 8-inch, and this would be the 10-inch ratio, which is taller in a portrait setting rather than a landscape setting. So what we want to do is change this up at the very top. We want to change this to 5, or we can actually change it to the actual numbers. We don't have to use this ratio. It'll be the same ratio, but what we can do is we can set this. We want it to be 10 inches wide by 8 inches, and that gives you the 8:10 ratio. So now when we go down to take a look at our image, you can see that now we have the 8:10 or 10:8 ratio. And you can see in your image, if you click on here, what you can do is you can change your the actual photo itself just by clicking here and moving. So of course we don't want white up here. So the height is perfect. It's just the width we want to change. So you can decide where you want it. You can kind of center this as much as you can. Of course it's a little off center, but you can see in the picture it'll go all the way to the edge on this side, and here we have excess. So now all you have to do is go to the very top in Photoshop of your canvas and menu at the very top, and you can either decide to save that size to go ahead and commit it, or to delete it. So we're going to go to commit it, and then that crops the actual image to the correct size. So now if we go under in Photoshop, we go to image size, we'll have the image size palette will show 10:8 at 200, and that's exactly what we want to do. So you don't have to make any changes here. You just go ahead and say cancel. So now we've set this at the size that we want. Some of you may find some other instances where you've had to print your image and then scan it, and if you have your images scanned at the wrong size, I would rather you go back, scan it again, and have it scanned at the proper size before you do that for prints. It's very easy to crop afterwards, but one of the parts of this exercise is to be able to scan if you have printed images, to scan your images and get them scanned to the proper size ahead of time. That way you can see what you're going to get in the final print. So that's it for today. Thank you, and we'll continue with the Photoshop tutorials that follow.